And this week, the E3 2016 nightmare continues. This morning, a release from Nintendo announcing that this year at 9 a.m. Pacific time on Tuesday, June 14th, which would be the day that we will watch the video or the conference or whatever, Nintendo's going to kick off the show. Well, Nintendo of America president and COO Reggie Fils-Aimé is going to kick off the show by introducing Nintendo Treehouse Live, which will be dedicated to a day of live streamed gameplay of The Legend of Zelda. What? Just when you thought this couldn't get any worse, it continues. It's just cascading.
All right, but
each week.
Let's be clear. It is not a nightmare to be shown a new Zelda game. I want to make that clear.
It is a nightmare for it to be the only game.
However, that is the problem.
That is a half nightmare to me.
Okay, I didn't expect that, and also because
none of us did.
The part of the joy of The Legend of Zelda is discovering the game world, and like a day-long live stream sounds really scary to me, unless they've got like this E3 demo with 3 sections, right, where they have like the boss battle, the open field.
Well, let's not play around. That's what it'll be. It's going to be multiple sections of the demo that they're going to play through. None of it will be the beginning, presumably. Like Nintendo wouldn't spoil something like
hopefully. So I'm
in
hopeful.
The past they haven't. I'm faithful that they won't.
Which means then it'll be kind of like they'll play a section and they'll bring on Miyamoto or Aonuma and they'll go through it again, right? And so there'll be repetition of footage, which that's fine.
See, that's
but
the thing.
If it's a whole day giving away a ton of stuff, I'd be very, very sad.
Hang on. So I don't think they are repeating whatever these demos are. I think so. Typically, that's been the case with Treehouse Live. If you've watched Treehouse Live in the past, and Andrew, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Oh no,
I'm sorry, but if you've watched Treehouse Live in the past, you know that these demos do repeat. Last year, for example, Treehouse Live was the only place you could see the real Metroid Prime Federation Force. That demo that they played on there, the not Blast Ball demo, the only place you could watch it was Treehouse Live. Tokyo Mirage Sessions, when it had a different name, you saw that on Treehouse Live.
Sharpify.
Those things, it was called Sharpify at the time. And you saw demos for Mario Maker, you saw demos for Star Fox, etc. But you're right, they did repeat. I don't think this sounds like it would repeat. I think this is going to be a day-long thing. They're just going to run with it, but they're not going to show too much.
It also could be a kind of a combination of what you guys are saying, right? It could be an hour of the equivalent of running around Hyrule Field, and then Aonuma sits down and talks for a little while without footage, and then it goes to the equivalent of fighting a Goma, and then it goes back to Miyamoto talking.
Sure.
I can see them taking 3 hours and spreading it across 6 hours, basically.
Which
that's still a lot, though. I don't know.
And a fan doesn't want to see that much. Like a new trailer was all people wanted going into this game, and maybe a demo. But knowing that it's a day long, no time confirmation of how long this will be.
And plus, even if people want to see it then, because it's the first. It's essentially like we've seen gameplay, which is the first like extended gameplay reveal. But then after that, if there are people who want to see 5 hours of Zelda this year at E3, great. Then they don't want to see any more until the game's out. Like that's the bigger problem.
And they're not going to see any more until the game's out. I'm willing to bet you that here.
I would. I mean, honestly, I would watch as a Zelda fan. I would watch 30 minutes, no problem. I'd love to see the fighting demos, and it's going to be a small part of the overall experience. So I'm hoping that it will be insightful, great interviews with some great new footage, but not a seriously long playthrough of this game and only of this one game.
Well, and all signs seem to point to that, which is worrisome. I mean, last week when we talked about this, we all in this room thought, well, okay, so Zelda's the only playable game. Surely they're going to say something else. Surely they're going to have their digital event, and Pokemon Sun and Moon is coming out this year.
And
that's a phenomenon. That game sells itself, but it still should have a presence at E3.
I mean, think about last year, right? During the Nintendo World Championships, which have nothing to do with this, they went, by the way, Earthbound Beginnings is coming to Virtual Console. It had nothing to do with the World Championships, but they just dropped it in the middle of the stream. Like, they can still do stuff like that.
Are you still hopeful?
Yeah. I still think there could be, every 30 minutes, it's like, hey, by the way, while we set up the next area of Zelda, here's this producer to show you 10 minutes of whatever weird 3DS game.
If you're watching the video, the look on my face is, please, I hope so. Because the expectations just can't get any lower.
Yeah.
Like, I understand what's happening here, and I've said this on Twitter. This is a rough transition year. Clearly, the plug is getting pulled on Wii U. That is how this looks. It looks like Nintendo gave up at E3
They're sitting
because
it out.
they didn't have something to show at that time.
Again,
That's fine.
caveat, they have Zelda, right? Like, arguably their biggest game on this platform, and probably one of the bigger ones on the next platform too. They have that, so I want to make sure that it doesn't come across as they're not there and they're not going to have a good show, because like when you walk into that booth and you see the crazy figures and like you get to play this game and the game plays well, that's all you need.
But
like
that doesn't cover up how empty and how different this show is for them. And also, as Mr. I am upset that Zelda got delayed and I'm not going to give them a pass. You sound like a very different person to me today.
No, because I've already come to terms with the fact that Zelda is the only game at the show. Like when you kept on saying like, well, maybe they'll show something else. Like I was thinking, no, I think
agreed with me.
No,
How
I
dare
think
you?
I think they have
Revisionist
absolutely
history.
no. I think they have absolutely given up. Like the only things that I would have expected from them on their digital stream would be Box Boy 2. And stuff like that, and Pokemon.
Okay,
Well, but we said that smaller stuff. That doesn't mean
that's
that
the
you
thing.
agreed with me.
But that's not going to move the needle. It's not
Who
like
said it was?
Here's where I agree with you though. Like if you walk in and Zelda is awesome, if they nail it, do you really need Kirby Mass Attack and Mario Tennis and all of these things that even if they had 10 other games, would it
fine.
matter?
No,
That's
they wouldn't.
fine.
And Box Boy is good, but
and I'm
wouldn't
not
matter
disagreeing with either one of you. But when you consider people who bought this console, when you consider that, forget even up to December. Let's just go a little further. From January to March, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what you're doing. You're putting in an NX pre-order because what else is there?
Or you're buying a PS4.
And that is to me what is the more disappointing part of this.
Yeah.
Where I wasn't expecting through the moon shot announcements, some Mario Galaxy HD, like nonsense. I don't care. All I wanted was to see an attempt to at least put this thing out to pasture in a nicer way, and they're not going to do this at the show. That doesn't mean they're going to do this ever. Not going to do it ever. Maybe after E3, Nintendo comes to its senses and says, here's 3 things that you should know about that you're going to be playing between now and when NX comes out. And to me, that would be nice, because for folks who bought this thing, how are you not supposed to feel burned right now?
Totally. I think the most exciting thing for me, looking in a positive direction, if we're considering Wii U dead and gone, is something you were talking to me about. Watching 6 hours of Zelda or whatever it is will tell us something about NX. Even if it's not overt, like watching the way that game works on Wii U will let us speculate pretty well about what NX will be. And I
don't
think that's
know.
really interesting.
I mean, like, yes, it could tell you something, right? Like, there are like rumors flying around about NX being cartridge based, and like when you're seeing Zelda and it has voice acting, huge vistas and everything, right?
Well,
like
voice
when you're
acting,
seeing that, you're like,
vistas,
well,
yes.
it would be very, very difficult to put this game on a cartridge. You know, even the bigger ones in a cost-effective fashion, right? Like that's a point
we
you
were arguing
made
about that this morning. Yeah.
And so it'll tell you something like that. But think about Twilight Princess. You could not look at Twilight Princess and predict what Wii was going to be. You know, and like this may be a similar situation where they never planned to put this game on NX and use whatever the MacGuffin is. And
if there's a MacGuffin.
Yeah, if there's a MacGuffin, it might,
sensor.
It's
All right.
a tongue sensor? Ooh.
It could be. Well, if you're interested in going to E3, Nintendo's doing a contest over at e3.nintendo.com. You might be a lucky person that gets picked. You should check it out. Also, the website has cool Zelda art, which at the end of the day
is really what we care about.
Yeah, you're just going to stare at it and shed one tear until E3 rolls around. But it's going to be fun. I have nothing but excitement to see. I'm nothing but excited to see that game in action.
Yeah.
I cannot wait.
And that's the
I'm
funny
only
thing.
disappointed that it's the only thing.
That's the thing is I'm going to complain every day up until E3 about how they don't have anything but Zelda, and then I'm going to get there and I'm going to see Zelda and I'm going to shut up because I'm going to hopefully just be really impressed.
14 seconds of Zelda or whatever at E3 2014.
Exactly.
Think of it, made us all lose our minds.
I mean, think about it this way. If Rockstar went to E3 and showed you a new Grand Theft Auto, you wouldn't complain that they didn't show you any of the other games, right? Like, that's how
not the
I
same
feel.
situation.
Like, I am really excited about Zelda. I can't wait to see it. I am okay with it. But at the same time, it's disappointing that the Wii U ends like this, and that the 3DS has become such an afterthought that it doesn't even deserve a mention at the show.
That's where I'm coming from. When you use Rockstar as an
Yeah.
example, no offense, I see that apples to oranges because Rockstar doesn't have a platform that they put
Right.
games on, whereas this one does. And again, this is signs of a rough transition. Hopefully, one day we'll get to hear more about it. I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know, if you tried to even ask someone from Nintendo if they just jumped through a warp pipe to get away. Like, I don't want to answer that.
Just a
I don't
smoke
know.
bomb.
Yeah, just
I mean, the
they're
3DS
gone.
point, that's really interesting. That hadn't even occurred to me. That is crazy. That
It
they
is.
don't. That this is virtually means no 3DS games there.
Well, there is
doesn't
stuff
even
announced though, right? There's Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix. There's Monster Hunter
Kirby.
Generations. There's Kirby
Yeah.
Planet Robobot. There's Pokemon Sun and Moon. That's
Robobot.
4 easily. Yeah, Robobot. There's stuff.
There's also another event that happens at the same time as E3, and that's our buddies at Apple, right, are going to have an event. I would not be surprised to see some Nintendo products showing there.
No.
You know,
Wow.
like that may send too strong of a message where, you know, like where Nintendo would be worried about it sounding like they gave up on their platforms that are supporting this.
That wouldn't
but
happen.
let's face it, they need some sort of way to get the word out to, you know, investors and everyone, like what their new Fire Emblem and Animal
Animal
Crossing
Crossing
games
are.
are.
I don't see that happening at WWE. Why would Nintendo pull out of E3 and then
No, they
advertise
didn't pull out
itself?
at
Well, they
E3.
didn't pull out, but
No.
they didn't show up the way they have in the
Well,
past.
no, but if their biggest products are the Zelda game and the 2 mobile games, ignoring Pokemon now.
Yeah, but you don't have to promote mobile. Mobile exists in a world where
But it's-
you don't have to promote it until it's available
don't-
because you
no,
want
you-
people to get the impulse buy.
Those events are not for consumers, though. That event is for the industry. That is for investors, and like Nintendo needs to regain some face with their investors, right?
So we've talked about this on
wait
the show
till the next
before.
gets delayed
And
till
so does
next
DNA.
November.
I mean, I would assume DNA is some
Oh
degree
yeah, their
of saying
financials.
some of that.
That's a
Yeah.
good point. I don't know if they went over the financials, but I guess, and you can close this out if you want. But the last thing I would say to you is just that I don't see that happening. I see if Fire Emblem and Animal Crossing, when they're ready, I think that has the potential to show up at a future Apple event. I don't think it shows up at one that's happening the same week as E3. Because
Yeah.
that sends a bad message to the people who bought Nintendo
Well,
platforms.
not if Miyamoto
does.
stands up there and says, "Right now we're
No.
showing The Legend of Zelda on the Wii U at E3, but we're
Apple would
also
never
working
let
on
that.
this."
No
I don't
way.
know.
No
Don't
way.
underestimate like the powerful statement
I will
that it
bet
sends.
you right here on this show that does not
Ooh.
happen. Stake bet right here.
Yeah,
Do you want?
I'm not
A new iPhone 7.
I'm not confident enough.